Every year, the average worker gives away weeks of life to a tax that never appears on a paycheck. It does not show up as income tax or sales tax. It hides inside rising prices, interest charges, and small fees. You are not just losing money. You are trading irreplaceable hours of your time. Without realizing it, I spent months turning all of these forces into one simple measure. I took inflation, bank and card interest, common fees, and the taxes you already see, and translated them into working hours for real households. Once you do that, a clear pattern emerges. The system quietly pulls more and more time from people who are doing everything right. This is not a lecture about national debt or abstract economic models. It is a way to read your own life. Once you know how many hours each bill and each habit costs you, some decisions that looked harmless suddenly feel very expensive, and some choices that looked impossible begin to make sense because you can see how much time they give back to you. In this video, I will give you a simple formula that turns any expense into hours of your life, and we will use it on everything from rent and car payments to interest charges and streaming subscriptions. Then we will add inflation and taxes on top. By the end, you will know exactly how many hours you work for the hidden tax each month, and which small changes give you the biggest pieces of your time back. Imagine taking your monthly pay and stripping away all the numbers on the screen until only one thing remains. That one thing is your real hourly price for each piece of your life. To find it, you take the amount of money that arrives in your bank account after visible taxes, and you divide it by the number of hours you work to earn it. If you receive $4,000 after taxes for 1 month of full-time work, and you work roughly 160 hours, then 1 hour of your life trades for $25. That is your personal exchange rate between time and money. Once you have that number, every price tag quietly turns into a time tag. The numbers on your bills do not change, but you see them differently, because you can now read them as pieces of your life. Take housing, which is usually the biggest slice. Suppose your rent or mortgage payment is $1,800 per month, and your real hourly rate is $25. That one payment costs you about 70 working hours. In other words, almost a full weeks of your working life each month go only to the roof over your head. You do not feel it in that shape because the payment leaves your account in one motion, often on an automatic schedule. But in reality, you are trading 14 or 15 mornings of your energy, your patience, and your attention just to keep the place where you sleep from being taken away. When you add utilities, insurance, and basic maintenance, housing can easily add another 10 or 15 hours. Before you have eaten a meal or paid a single debt, a large part of your month has already been sold. Now look at the smaller, quieter thief that moves through the grocery store and the gas station. When prices rise, most people think only about dollars. Last year, your typical grocery trip might have cost $100. This year, it might be $115. $15 does not feel like a disaster, so it is easy to shrug and move on. But if your real hourly rate is $25, that difference is more than half an hour of your life for each trip. If you shop once a week, that is more than the extra hours of work every month just to buy the same food. Over a year, those small increases can take a full extra week of your time. You do not get new skills, new memories, or new experiences in return. You get the same groceries, and you simply spend more of your life earning them. That turns this hidden tax into something even more powerful, because it stretches the cost of a decision far into the future. Imagine a car loan with a payment of $500 each month. At an hourly rate of $25, that payment represents 20 working hours. The price of the car is not only the sticker in the showroom, it is 20 hours every month for 5 years, or longer if the loan is extended. When interest is high, a large part of those hours are not buying you any more car. They are only paying for the right to owe money more slowly. Credit cards make this effect even stronger. A balance of $3,000 at a high interest rate may require many years of payments. If you only pay the minimum, each of those payments contains hours of your life that produce nothing new. They only keep the balance from growing faster. Fees and subscriptions look harmless because they arrive in small pieces, but they also carry a time cost. $10 for a streaming service here, $15 for a gym membership you rarely use there, a few dollars a month for an app you barely touch. Each charge might equal only 20 or 30 minutes of your work. That feels like nothing. Yet when you group them together over 12 months, they may add up to hundreds of dollars and many hours of your time. The hidden tax lies in the places where you never stop to multiply by 12 and divide by your wage. It lives in bank account fees, in small penalties for late payments, in shipping charges that you barely notice, and in impulse buys that become regular habits. Each one sends a tiny invoice to your future self. Taxes themselves are obvious on paper, but invisible in time. When you receive a paycheck, you can see how much was taken for income tax, for social programs, and for other mandatory contributions. It is easy to accept those numbers as fixed, but when you use your hourly rate, you can see how many hours each deduction represents. If 1/4 of your gross pay goes to visible taxes, then 1/4 of every hour you work is not for your rent, your food, or your goals. It is time spent funding the shared costs of the system you live in. That may be necessary, and parts of it may even be worth it, but it is still a trade. When you add the invisible taxes of rising prices, interest, and fees on top of the visible ones, you may discover that half of your working life is spent simply keeping the machine running. To make all of this practical, you can use a simple process. Step 1 is to calculate your real hourly rate. Take the amount of money that actually reaches your bank account in 1 month and divide it by the number of hours you work to earn it. Step 2 is to take each major monthly expense, multiply it by 12 to see the yearly cost, and then divide by your hourly rate. The result is the number of hours per year that this expense consumes. Step 3 is to add a rough estimate of the extra cost from rising prices and from interest on any related debt, and turn that extra cost into hours as well. Suddenly your budget is no longer a list of numbers. It is a map of your calendar. When you see your costs this way, some priorities begin to shift. You might decide that spending 3 full weeks of work each year on a car is worth it because it gives you freedom, safety, or access to better jobs. You might also decide that spending 1 full week of work each year on subscriptions you barely remember signing up for is not worth it at all. You might find that moving to a slightly smaller home could buy you an entire extra month of free time over the course of a year. You might realize that paying down a credit card aggressively is not only about saving money, it is about winning back future Saturdays that would otherwise belong to a bill. The hidden tax cannot be removed entirely. There will always be visible taxes, basic living costs, and some level of rising prices. But you can reduce how much of your time they claim by changing how you make decisions. Before you take on a new payment, you can ask one clear question. How many hours of my life will this really cost me each month and each year? Before you keep an old habit, you can ask a second question. If I had those hours back as free time, would I choose to buy this again? These questions do not require complex mathematics or financial expertise. They require only the courage to look at your life in the currency that matters most. When you begin to measure money in hours, you stop thinking of saving as deprivation. You see it as buying back pieces of your future. Saying no to a purchase is not simply keeping dollars in your account. It is choosing not to sell another afternoon, another evening, or another weekend. Over time, many small choices made with this lens can add up to a very different life. Instead of working more and more years just to keep up with hidden taxes, you can slowly redirect more of your energy toward people and projects that matter to you. The system will not change overnight, but your position inside it can.